and DeLuca's and all the gourmet shops that we now know today, it was before all that. And, you know, my grandfather was a pioneer in that sense. Well, a pioneer here, because in Italy they were on every street corner. But here it was a whole new thing, so that's why I think people were so excited about it.
Yeah, now you buy mascarpone at Trader Joe's. I was saying
exactly.
during our demo.
And you can find Parmesan cheese. I mean, these days you can find
real Parmesan cheese.
Prosciutto.
Yeah.
At Walmart. So I mean, it's possible. That's why so many people, I think, like making Italian food, because it's so, the ingredients are so accessible.
Well, I think obviously that's the key to your brilliant success, is just the simplicity of your food, which I think speaks to very authentic Italian cooking. Was that rough going for you at the beginning, or that was just so instinctive because that's what you knew? I mean, that's how you were cooking anyway. When you worked in a restaurant, was your food different than what you're doing now?
When I worked in a restaurant, my food was very different. And you have to remember, I went to Paris for culinary school. So I had these delusions of grandeur that I was going to be, I don't know who I thought I was going to be, maybe Joël Robuchon or somebody, you know, Alain Ducasse.
Did you work in Paris while you were going to school?
I did work a little bit in Paris, and you know, the reason I even went to Paris is because I initially wanted to be a pastry chef. And my family was like, well, there's no better place than Paris. So, but then going there, I realized, you know, I should really study everything. So, and then I ended up not really doing a lot of pastries other than what I do on my show. But that is because I have a real sweet tooth, so that's what I thought I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing, which I still eat sugar anyway, so it's all good. But that's the whole reason for that. But yes, of course, when you work in a restaurant, your food is definitely different. When I started doing Food Network, although Italian food is what I grew up with, I thought everybody knew what there was to know about Italian food.
Oh, really?
I kept saying to Food Network, well, who cares about Italian food? It's so obvious, you know, what pasta is and all these things are. And then I started to realize,
people were doing it on the Food Network too.
Yeah, and there were, the Mario Batali was already doing it. So I thought, I don't want to just follow in somebody's footsteps. Let me do something a little different. What I didn't realize was they weren't really doing basic food. They were doing chefy food. And as much as they were wonderful to watch, and they are fantastic cooks and chefs, you couldn't go home and reproduce it. Or at least you wouldn't have the confidence to do that.
Or be even inspired, I think. It's sort of like the difference between...
Well, I thought Mario was quite inspiring, but I was also an aspiring chef myself, so I guess that was why. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the difference. That is the difference between the two types of cooking.
Did you find it rough going in a Parisian kitchen with the men?
I found it rough going not only in Paris, even here. It's a male-dominated, workplace, and it's gotten a lot better since I left 6 or 7 years ago. It's gotten much better. There's a lot more women in the kitchen. When I started, there were very, very few women in the kitchen. So, yeah.
Any sabotage that you can recall?
I'm going to take the fifth on that one. I want to save that for a later day. I don't want that stuff coming back to me just yet.
It'll wind up on YouTube at about 5 o'clock. Yeah, exactly. So when you came back here, you're working at DDL Food Show, and then you went into restaurants here as well? Or
DDL Food Show was only open for a few years, until I was about 14 years old. And then it closed. Because my grandfather... because he's a movie producer, he does everything. He likes to do everything really big, and so it was too big of a project, and it didn't quite work out the way he was basically ahead of his time. And so then, I came to school here. I went to UCLA. I know. Isn't that great? That's why it's so much fun to come back here.
Studying what?
Anthropology.
There you go. All right. Anthropology.
Anthropology, yep. And I studied, I also studied a lot of food and how that impacts a culture and why people cook the way they do and why they use the ingredients they do. And then I went to Paris and went to Cordon Bleu and went to cooking school there. And came back here and worked at the Ritz-Carlton under a French chef, and then worked for Wolfgang Puck at Spago.
Right.
And for his pastry chef, Sherry Yard.
Who's fabulous.
Who is phenomenal.
Right.
And then I started catering on my own. Doing some celebrities and some, private chefing, whatever. And then I started doing some food styling with a friend of mine who was a food stylist at the time.
Oh.
And
for freelance photographers?
Yeah, anytime she came out to the West, I'd help her because she lived back east at the time. And anytime they did a shoot on the West Coast, I'd help out. I thought, you know, this will bring me back to my days in Paris and making everything look beautiful. And I thought, you know, this might be a really fun career to be a food stylist. And from being a food stylist, assisting really, I got my own little gig for Food and Wine magazine.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and
funny. I forgot about that. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah.
Just because I hadn't worked for you guys, honestly. And so they gave me my own little story. My grandfather was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Oscars.
Yes.
And so they said to me, you know, why don't you do a De Laurentiis Sunday brunch? And I thought, okay. So I got my family together. I put together a bunch of recipes, and we shot it. I got to food style it myself. So I thought, I have made it. I've really made it. This is going to be fantastic. I was very excited. We did the whole thing, and Food Network happened to see the article. And from there, the rest is history. This is, Everyday Italian was born from those recipes and that article.
Really? And they just called you and had you do a demo on tape and all that? And...
Yep. They called me. They said, we love your recipes. We think they're easy. We're, whatever. And they said, put yourself on tape, because not everybody that can cook can teach. This is going back to what I was telling you before. Or can be on camera. So I did, and and I'll admit, you guys, when I first did it, it was not pretty. It wasn't pretty because I was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable in front of the camera. I come from a family where, a lot of us are behind the camera, but my grandmother was an actress, so there's a lot of people, and I didn't choose that road because I was a very shy person. Which is shocking that I can talk in front of all of you guys. Because I was a very shy person, so that camera, it felt like, I don't know, I felt like I had to share everything.
Intrusive?
It was very intrusive, and I think the reason I chose to be in the kitchen is because I wanted to come out for 5 minutes, smile, see that everybody else was smiling, and then retreat.
Right.
And so this was a totally different thing for me, and it was very difficult. And it took us several seasons to be comfortable. And in fact, they don't air those anymore, thank God.
Now, what did your grandfather think? Did he see the first season or any of the first season?
My grandfather thought I was crazy. First of all, he's like, what? There's a channel that has food shows? What? And then when he realized, when he started watching, and he's like, but you're telling them that it's okay to open a can of chicken stock, or it's okay to buy some jarred, tomato sauce. That's not okay. That is just not okay. And so I took a lot of flack for quite a while. I think it's taken him about 5 years. Now he realizes, I think you hit, I think that you really hit on something here.
Right, exactly. Although he would never use anything out of a can or a jar.
He would not.
Either.
No, he would not.
Now, your life changed dramatically.
She's 1.
A year ago. Giada has a daughter now named Jade, a lovely daughter named Jade, and I think that having children makes you think about food in a different way. I don't have any children, but I remember when my nephews were born. I have twin nephews, and we started going out to dinner with them, and I never really paid much attention to what a kid's menu is, and I was horrified. So I'm warning you ahead of time. Although today I think it's better. It perhaps might be better. What do you want to instill in your daughter, and obviously you hope that she'll be adept in the kitchen and want to, carry on her mother's footsteps as far as being talented in that way. How are you going to start that process?
Well, we've started the process because now she eats everything. She's not just, drinking milk or formula or what have you. So we've started the process. She basically sits in the kitchen with me a lot of the time in her high chair, or she crawls around. We have a center island. She just keeps crawling around. She's gotten to the point now where she's not happy being on the floor anymore. She wants to be up high in my arm to see what I'm doing.
Good.
So I will cook things like a tomato sauce or a soup or anything. And I'll take a little wooden spoon and kind of just put it on her lips so she can kind of taste things. And she loves to do that. She's also a very good eater. She eats just about everything.